Hey, hey, hey.
I got my mojo working, babe.
This is the Jimmy Doane Show. Hey, everybody. I'm Counselor Curtis. Jimmy Doane is here with me.
Hi.
We are coming to you live, actually, on YouTube. We are live twice a week these days at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can tell your friends.
On Wednesday and Sunday.
Wednesday and Sunday, that's correct.
Wednesday and Sunday.
And you can tell your friends it's D-O-A-N-E. Jimmy Doane. Over here at YouTube. We are the #1 libertarian podcast. I don't care what anybody says.
That's right. Don't care what anybody says. True libertarian, almost, or narco-capitalist almost.
That's right. So today is the 20th of June, 2018. Today is Wednesday.
Now, what does that mean?
What
What's special about today?
Uh,
Or tomorrow?
It's the summer solstice.
Summer solstice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here in Florida, we get about 14 hours. It varies between, because the average is 12, it varies between 10 hours a day of sunshine and 14 hours. And so tomorrow we should get the full 14 hours.
Uh-huh.
But other places in this country go up to 17 or 18 hours. And of course, you have to go to Canada and Alaska to get the full. Even northern Alaska doesn't get the full 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Mrs. Jimmy hates tomorrow. I'll have to lord it on her because as soon as the days start to get shorter, she gets all depressed.
Well, so longest day of the year.
Yep.
Good beach day.
Yep. And what's interesting about this is as you well know, even though we started summer down here already, pretty much, the hottest days don't come for another month or two. There's a delay.
Right.
In the way the sun is reflected, and it takes a little while to do all this.
The earth warms up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe, huh?
And the oceans.
Okay.
The oceans take a while to warm up.
Okay. You mentioned Canada. Real quick light note. Canada has legalized marijuana.
Right.
For recreational purposes.
Yeah, for recreational.
Right.
The entire country. Now, let me tell you what's interesting about that. The drug cartels can't be too happy. And the only thing that could screw it up is the way they screwed it up, like in California and here in Florida, is they charge too much.
Right.
So that, I mean, the taxes are onerous and the licenses are onerous, so that it still pays.
They made it legal for 6 people.
Right.
I mean, it's so heavily regulated, it wasn't made legal. What happened is they authorized certain people to get into the business.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Well, there was
and let me tell you, here in Florida, it has had zero effect on supply and demand and pricing and drugs and violence and all that kind of stuff, because there is no, it is not as though the plant is available for regular use.
You mean, but it's still for medicine.
For medical here,
right.
But it's still incredibly expensive, even as a medicine.
Really?
Here in Florida, yes.
I did not know
it's
that.
10 times the black market price or
You're
something. You're
kidding.
No. So, no...
I did not know that.
No effect at all in terms of reduction in crime that we were hoping for, unfortunately. They just won't get their paws off of it.
Yeah, no. They see this giant pot. Well, as they say, money to politicians is like dung to flies. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just can't stay away from it. It's just.
Well, hopefully that'll drag everybody into the market,
right,
and decriminalize it and eliminate some of our drug interdiction.
Well, one thing that is kind of good, and it's interesting because the Gainesville Sun has been talking about. Has had several articles here recently. Here's one, here's an article here. It's right here about medical marijuana here in town and how it's helping people. And apparently,
they've allowed literally seven different groups. That's it. To be involved in the manufacture,
right,
and sale.
There's 2 places here in town, I think, that are dispensaries.
At least 2. I know of a few.
Okay.
I know of 3 or 4. But
okay.
I don't know that they're dispensaries. I'm not exactly sure what you can get there. You might only be able to get some type of one of those vape pens or whatever you put the oil into.
Okay.
I'm not sure you can get the oil at all or any of them, but I'm guessing you can. But what I've heard is that it's incredibly expensive.
Huh. That unfortunately is, and of course it costs nothing to make.
Right, virtually.
So it's like I say, so the drug trade probably won't go down.
Continues.
All right. Well, you got any other announcements that you want to make?
Not on that, no.
Okay. On anything else?
I'm just jumping in there.
Okay. The big news.
The big news.
Here it is, right here. Let's see. Where is it here? Not that one. Here's the big news.
I know.
Two of them. Here's the last 2 days' papers.
You're talking about the border.
Officials. This is officials.
Visit border amid outrage.
Outrage. They are just totally outraged.
That's it.
Ted Cruz flipped.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he flipped. He had been one this, as a Trump supporter, and he flipped. He barely went down there.
And let's just summarize briefly for people who don't know, if you haven't heard,
that people are. This is another thing here about
what's going on.
What's going on? There's a picture.
Is that Trump has put special forces units along the borders, and what they do is they regularly make raids into Mexico and snatch children.
No, I don't think so. No.
What?
Sarcasm?
Wait, are you sure that's not what's happening?
I'm pretty sure that's
what I read.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they take the children and they throw them basically in a big pit with like a cage top.
Right.
It's like a big tiger cage, so they can just poke them from the top as they walk across, you know.
They throw some rabid dogs in there.
Right, that's right. You have to. That's right. And it's either fight or
right.
Eat or be eaten.
That's right. It's
and
like
then
pig on a stick. What was that? Animal Farm or whatever it was.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating about this is to me is a couple of things. One, as we've said before, any law or outrage that is based on emotion is a waste. Is never goes right. That's why we have the Amber Alert and other things like these. Whenever you see a law that's named after some kid, right away,
right?
You know. Now, what they're talking about here, of course, are the children,
right?
And Rachel Maddow was crying. She couldn't finish.
You'd think she'd never seen a child detention facility or something.
Right.
I mean,
so never.
Seriously, does she not understand? If a person gets arrested, if a single parent gets arrested, you got to do something with the child. I mean, something. And
well, they showed a picture from 2 or 3 years ago. This one kid in a cage.
Right.
And this, I mean, the emotion and the people. I mean, are Laura Bush was another one, and some other people. They're going nuts on this. They are just weeping and wailing and crying.
Go ahead. Now you go.
Okay. What I'm going to say is, they offer no alternative. They are sitting there saying, "You can't look. Well, Trump could take a pen and stop this today."
Well, I have an alternative that they would like.
What? Oh, well, we're going to talk about the paint gun.
Well, that yeah,
okay.
but yeah, generally, I mean, we have a full-on solution. I don't know if you'll like a piece of it. I know Mrs. Jimmy doesn't like at least a piece of it.
Okay.
But there is a full-on solution that would satisfy the liberals. They're not putting it out there, as you say. They're just crying foul.
Okay, what's the solution?
The solution is, okay, here's the reason that you can have outrage in this type of situation is because it's easy to look at the reason why the person was arrested and discount it. Okay, that is to say, look, if you were going to rob a bank and you had a small child, you were a new father, a single father, and the mom was out of the picture. You're a widower, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to rob a bank, and the way I'm going to do it is with my baby carriage. And so you push it in the bank, and then you hold up your gun, and they jump you and take you down. Well, there's a baby. Okay, so something has to be done with this baby, and everybody understands that they're not going to throw the baby in with you like, here's your kid, you're going into prison, here's your kid to take your kid with you. That's not going to happen. We don't have dual facilities for parents and kids, so the kid has to go into some type of government endorsed can be secured.
in foster care usually.
Right, exactly. They immediately look for a relative of some type. Now, in the States, if that happens here, there are lots of relatives around usually, or at least family members or church members or somebody that the kid knows, a friend or something. When they're at the border and you're coming over and you got nobody, there's not going to be anybody for them to place the kid with. Okay. So it's much, much more difficult. You have to have volunteer families. And so...
well, they pay them, so, you know.
Oh, yeah. I say volunteer. Like you said, they're paid. So there is definitely going to be a transitional period whereby these kids are in custody. But what people don't like is the fact that crossing the border, ostensibly, is not a crime. That is to say, you don't try to hurt anybody, and nobody gets hurt when you cross the border.
I think the first time you come across it's a misdemeanor.
Oh, yeah. Look, clearly the government has the authority to arrest you if you cross its border. Mm-hmm. If they want to, that could be a capital offense.
Right.
If they wanted to make it that. Nobody could argue that the government doesn't have the right to enforce the border, or that isn't their purview and duty to do. I don't think. But I think just as Americans, and especially the left, they're sensitized to the concept that, look, we're presumed innocent in this country. Everybody is presumed innocent. That's a tenet of our law that goes back hundreds of years, and the concept is, if you meet somebody on the street, in general, you put them in the good category. In general, you look at the person as...
Right.
And so you can treat them immediately with compassion or respect. You don't have to immediately go to arms, basically. And that's how, from my perspective, we should police our borders. I think we should have very open borders and basically let people basically come in. And of course, the way we would do it, the way that I would do it is, this is a totally serious proposition, but what I would do is I would put a Taco Bell at every single one of our border checkpoints. Okay. And I would say, look, here's what you get. When you come through the border checkpoint, you eat at the Taco Bell. We're going to give you a free meal, and you get a green card, which...
Well, maybe not green, but not a green card allows you free everything. You get an identity card.
Well, right. What I would do is I would say, look, you get a card that says I'm an immigrant, and in a year or something, you get full citizenship, or 5 years or something like that. And what you would do in order to get your meal is you would sign a waiver of benefits. And
right.
I can tell you that conservatives' big issue with the immigrants is usually the fact that they get paid as soon as they step foot in the country. And if they would sign a waiver as to those benefits, I think people would be much more welcoming to immigrants coming in. So what you do is you get them to sign this waiver, you give them their free meal. Now what you do is you collect the trash from them, and you send out the specialists to collect the trash and make sure the trash is assigned to the right person. That in the line, when they're getting their food, you take their picture from 17 different angles.
Right.
And then when you feed them, you collect the trash, and off of the trash you get their fingerprint and their DNA off of the straw. Okay. If you really need to, you can feed them like some RFID chips or something like that. You know, if you really want to keep track of them. But then you have everybody who is legitimate coming in through the front door, basically through that door. Everybody who has nothing to hide and just wants to work would just come straight through there. And the only people who would not come through that corridor would be people who had something to hide, people who had a past they wanted to bury, or people who didn't want to waive the benefits and were trying to cheat the system in some way. And for those people, we have a totally different system, which is going to be free and actually may produce money. And what we do there is, this is the paintball range. And so surrounding each Taco Bell Border Patrol station is basically 10 miles or so, or whatever, however many you want, 10, 20, 30 miles of terrain, which is just...
Fenced off.
Right. Just a regular fence, nothing big, but just a little barrier or whatever. And then what you do is you authorize companies to activate drones that are armed with paintball guns, and you and you have these controlled by people that are operated
From their home computer?
exactly on the internet, online multiplayer game, and you sign on, you pay a little fee, you get a team, and you patrol the border in your paintball gun.
Okay.
With your paintball drone.
I was thinking her first of all about turrets.
Yeah, you
But
could
you're
have
saying
turrets.
drones.
You could sign on and have a little turret pop up if you wanted to. You could have a whole playing field.
Right.
People could
Hunger
organize
Games or whatever.
Exactly, and then when you hit a target, it notifies the authorities of the location and color of the target.
Okay.
And then there you go. So you have the border patrolled by citizens who are having fun, paying money, and all the good people come in through the front door. No need to separate parents from their kids because all the people with kids, all the normal people would just walk through the front door.
Right.
And then what you do is you'd grant amnesty for the people who are here. That's the part that Mrs. Jimmy doesn't like.
Oh.
Probably. But
Well, here's the
that's
deal.
what I would do.
There's a couple things that I consider about it. I thought it was interesting. What Mrs. Jimmy says is don't let any of them in. And it's interesting. No, just stop at the border, turn around. You're not welcome here. You know, the door is slammed to you. It's interesting. There are 4 people that are up for that. One is Dershowitz.
Mm-hmm.
He basically said, can't do this, can't do that, but turn back. Scott Adams and Rush Limbaugh also have said, you know, don't let him in, turn him back. And so, but the guy who really makes the best case for it, if you get a chance, is Scott Adams. He has a Periscope, which then goes over onto YouTube at some after he does like a Periscope or 2 a day, and he talks he's very good at this, and he talks about this at length. And what he says is that most people fail to give you an alternative, and so if you say that it's a horrible thing that the kids are taken away from the parents, and the parents go into some waiting room, and the kids go into another kind of way. But what's the alternative? What is better than that? And I mean, you know, you're not gonna just let them run loose. I mean, you can't just open up the border and let them run in. That's not even the Democrats don't want that. And one of the things
Well, that's kind of what I just said.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that when you look at this, one of the things the Democrats want to do, and Rush talked about this, is they want to keep this. You know, we finished with Snowy, whatever her name was.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels. Yeah, we finished with her. So this is the outrage du jour
Sure.
of the week, and they need to keep this alive as long as they can because they get to send out their letters and their weepy, you know, the pictures. No, seriously. As far as they're concerned, this if nothing ever gets
it
passed,
does seem a little disingenuous to have Nancy Pelosi get up there and say what she did, and then also Hillary Clinton said he lied. He lied.
well, of course,
And
Chuck Schumer, another one. You know, these people are.
well, it just seems a little too obvious at this
No,
point.
well, you say that, but it is not. I mean, really, because you have some ostensibly intelligent people like Ted Cruz, for instance, who's a Republican, who flip-flopped because of
Well, what is his new?
he was an absolute Trump supporter. He's from Texas,
Right.
And he was an absolute Trump supporter. But yesterday, or the day before, he says, "Yeah, I've reconsidered it, and now you know we have to do something about the kids." It's always about the kids, you know what I mean? The kids, kids.
Well, we
cry.
Well, look, I will say this. In this country, we have a completely insensitive policy when it comes to children and parents. And it
You hear
really,
that? Did you hear that sound just now?
Yes.
That was Scott Adams when he sends out a thing on.
Can you turn it off?
Yeah, no, that'll go away. Don't worry about it. But he's going on the Periscope as we speak.
Uh-huh. Right, so tune over to that.
Yeah, tune over to that, right. Well, except this, yeah, right, that's right, you could do that
That's
on
right.
your other screen.
So, what was I saying?
Okay, well, let me mention one other thing that I want to talk about. What is fascinating to me is if these people are asylum seekers, if they are in a country, Ecuador or whatever the country is where they're being persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is amazing to me is they tromp through about 2 or 3 Spanish-speaking countries to get to the United States, which we don't speak Spanish. I mean, generally speaking. And I'm saying that once you're out of danger, let's say you get into Mexico or Guatemala or something, or someplace where you're safer than you were, then stay there.
Well, that's indicative of the concept that it's not simply violence that they're fleeing. Most of them are economic refugees. That's really what it comes down to, is these people are seeking a better life in the promised land. Only half of them or so are fleeing some type of gang violence or institutionalized this or their own domestic situation.
Well, one of the problems of absolutely racist, the reason they did it was to keep Negroes, black people, whatever it is, out of the market because they were willing to work for fewer dollars. And now, of course, when these people come across the border, I mean, they're willing to put together, do the work that, quote, we won't do. And but what happens is they end up putting Americans out of work who won't work for that kind of money. I mean, it's a labor thing. And of course, as I've said, if you had no minimum wage, I don't think the problem would be wages would rise to what the market would demand. But the main thing is, as we've talked about before, and that is you don't get benefits except, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, until we get rid of it, there are two benefits that you get by coming to this country that we pay for. One, school, and that's expensive. And number two, hospitalization. If you go to the emergency room, they have to take you. Now, you might have to wait 2 or 3 or 5 hours or whatever it is, but the simple fact is those two benefits are worth a ton of money. And those are the ones that I personally would like to see, ash canned. I mean, so that's, like you say, for economic benefits, those are the two, even though if you cut off Social Security or you cut off welfare, no food stamps, whatever it is, no housing, no Section 8, even if you were to cut off all that stuff, it still, for a lot of people, would still be beneficial economically to show up here. And I don't know what else to say except, as I say, you're coming through, the incentive to get to this country must be pretty strong because you come to a country where very few of the people speak Spanish.
And that is why I'm not so worried about having an open border and there being a flood of immigrants. Because
you have to cut off the welfare.
Right. Well,
I mean, all of it.
Well, I agree that...
And then you're going to hear the howls from the people. You're going to let these people starve in the streets. And, look at right now, look at the homeless situation in San Francisco and the trash and all this other stuff.
Right. And, of course, my response to that is that if you cut those programs, then what you necessarily do is return huge sums of money to the people. And if the people want those programs or want that money spent on those programs, then they can spend that money on those programs. On a state level
or on a local level.
Or on a volunteer level.
On a volunteer, right.
They can organize charities with the money, with the extra 40% of their paycheck that they get back.
That's
or whatever
true.
It is. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't spend money on that. I'm saying they shouldn't force other people to spend money on that. But
well, again, the nuts and bolts of this, of course, is that the separations are the result of Trump administration's decision to prosecute the adults as criminals, which requires separation.
Right.
So this is where you've got a little bit of a problem. It seems it's pretty obvious on its face, but all I can tell you is all the wailing and the gnashing of teeth and so forth from now some Republicans, but all the libs. They don't offer the alternative. They just say you've got to fix this, and they're saying, well, what would be more better for the people?
There are several things you can do. You can have jail cells at the border, wherein you put both the parent and child. You're going to have family jail cells.
Well, then
it's crazy.
You have to determine, of course, that the child belongs to the parent.
Right. Well, there would be all kinds of things like that. Look. I'm not suggesting this is a good idea. Okay, no. I'm suggesting this.
Well, do you think it's better? That's the question. Is all we're asking is that as bad as it might be?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to consider whether it's better because I have even better solution.
Okay.
I mean, from my perspective, you let them in. You just let them in. You let people in, and the criminals are not going to come through with their kid. It's not going to be a criminal and their kid. That's just not how it's going to be. We're not worried about the invaders, or I'm not worried about people invading.
The sins of the father, not what we do here.
It's just, there has to be so much impetus for you to leave your home country
and trudge
hundreds of miles
through
with your
gang infested and rattlesnakes and everything to come. That's right.
As far as I'm concerned, that takes an extraordinary amount of willpower and determination, and those people should be given a chance.
Well,
we shouldn't have minimum wage laws.
They take a chance. Here,
that's what I mean.
Until the 30s, anybody that came to this country came. First of all, they came knowing full damn well they weren't going to get any help.
Right.
And so they had to start right off the bat working and doing what they did. I mean, we have relatives. We have old relatives that came here, left their family, maybe went and got them, maybe didn't. All that kind of stuff. But I mean, they had to start off, or else they started. And I forget what the number is, but something like 40% of the immigrants in this country in the 1800s went home. They couldn't make it here, and they went back home. I mean, they must have saved up enough for the ship thing, the steerage class or whatever.
Well, and also you realize what your connection is back with the home country.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's you think
more.
about it, but I mean if you seriously are willing to leave, northern Italy and go to a country where nobody speaks Italian a bit basically, and across a 3,000 mile, 4,000 mile storm-tossed ocean with ships sinking.
It takes some cojones.
And those are the people you want.
Right.
You want the gamblers and the people. That was what really started this country off. Where the people that came here were the hardiest individuals on the planet.
Right.
And now, what we get into the wusses in here that are just, that are the takers, and this is not good. So.
Well, I would, if there were no minimum wage, then you could let them come in and work at whatever level their wage settled at, and I would not be too worried about them taking jobs from Americans, because I cannot imagine there's a huge set of Americans whose skill set is on par with a bunch of people trudging across countries.
Well, the other thing to remember is we have a lot of our, especially inner city unemployment, is because kids are worth $5, not $7.50.
That's what I mean. That's why I would say if you drop the minimum wage.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be an easier way to absorb.
Again, when you realize that the minimum wage has always been about racism, it is the most racist thing you can imagine. And
well, I've never heard that.
Oh, you're kidding
me.
I
mean, I have heard it, but I haven't heard it recently.
What you should do is you go back to like 1933 or 34 when they're getting ready to pass a minimum wage, and get the transcripts from the Senate,
the congressional hearings,
and you'll find out that they made it crystal clear, that the unions were totally upset about this because the African Americans were taking their jobs, and they wanted to get them out of the workforce. So that's I mean, literally they said it out loud and of course you have to understand that in the 30s the Ku Klux Klan was rampant. I mean, it was a totally racist Jim Crow society. So
all right, well, that's my opinion about the border. Really.
Okay. Two things though to bring this to a close. One is the a fundraiser. When we talk about private, it turns out that the government, of course, has enlisted a bunch of private companies to take care of these kids. Okay. And so they're making a fortune. They're making big money.
Okay.
And of course, then what you find is a fundraiser organized on Facebook to help immigrant families separated at the border has raised millions of dollars in just a few days.
Excellent.
Excellent. A private solution. By midday Wednesday, more than 250,000 people, including Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, a COO, had donated more than $10 million to the fundraiser, started by Bay Area couple Dave and Charlotte over the weekend with the initial goal of raising $1,500. Okay, and they've already raised more than $10 million, and this was just a couple of days ago.
Right,
and that was in one day.
Nice.
So
it just goes to show you what people can do.
The RACIS is a Texas immigration legal services provider that plans to use the proceeds to directly fund the bond payments to allow parents to be removed from detention while they wait for court proceedings, as well as legal representation for children in Texas immigration court. So, I mean, this,
Reuniting a parent with the same age and
what
size.
are you talking about? Are you nuts? No.
This is what I've heard. This is.
Oh my
You don't
God.
actually get your child back. It could be a different sex, but who cares? these
Switched
days?
at birth?
That's right. Well, you never know.
Give me a break. Yeah, you can see parents want to take care of that. You betcha. We took away your 6-year-old child, but we found one that's 5.5. It's a girl.
That's right. That's right.
But close enough.
That's right.
Same tint.
Right. So there are tweaks that can be made to the policies.
The problem is tweaks and policies always mess things up.
Well, there has to be a decision made as to how strictly the border is going to be enforced.
Well,
Either you're going to arrest people at the border, in which case
You
you
turn
either have
them
to
away.
arrest the children too, right? Or
That's what
as
some
they
people
get
say.
close, you just fire beanbags at them or whatever it is.
Well, that's you can't do that in a sovereign country. But one of the things you should do, I suppose, is to finish off the wall. There was a video the other day of this farmer where the wall ended. I told you this last time.
No.
It ended, and then there was like 4 strands of barbed wire.
Oh yeah.
And what happened was that the farmer was sitting there. It was the sheriff. Typical
People
sheriff was
pass right
50
there.
pounds overweight, and he says, "Oh, you unhook this and you move it, and Now I understand there's a lot of problems with the wall because there are places where you can't build. About 2,200 miles. Or
Well,
something.
that's the crazy thing is what do you do? What are you talking about? There's no need for this. This
This is why you have these big towers, you have drones, you have everything.
Right.
You have what they had in. I know this sounds people are going to poop all over me for this, but you have what they have like around Fort Knox or around the White House. You have sensors that fire up as soon as something happens, like that. And then cameras snap, whatever it is. And I mean, if you have a couple of thousand drones ready to go on the ground, and hear this, click, click, click as people are coming across, and all the, their AI, automated intelligence or whatever it is.
Target acquired,
right? Dee, 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 dee. So yeah, that would be, and of course you're seeing the drones come up now that have longer wait times in the air.
Right.
So that'll be, if you can stay up there for a couple of hours, that would be a big help. But then you go back and you can your Roomba vacuum, for God's sakes, knows to go plug in when it gets low on juice.
Right. Well, that's why you have the drones programmed so that when they get low on juice, they just automatically disconnect,
Go
turn
home.
around, and go
They go home. They go
Right.
home and they plug in, and the next one comes up.
Right.
Take my place.
Right. You can just transfer right over to
Right,
another
exactly.
launch secondary drone, transfer controls.
That's right.
First primary drone.
Launch the Alert 5
That's right.
aircraft.
That's right. By the way, small light note.
Yeah.
Are you going to say it? What?
Yeah. Another Top Gun.
Yeah. they're
Another
fantastic.
Top Gun, and it's going to be Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what?
And Iceman.
And Iceman, right? And they showed what they look. Of course, Iceman's gained a few pounds, but Tom's going to look a little older. But I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to
They're the instructors this time or something.
Scarrett? He's like in his 80s. I don't know.
I
if
didn't
he's
think
gonna,
he was still around. Okay.
I don't know if he is or not. I don't think so. Maybe I don't know.
I
But
thought
Tom
he just died a year or two ago. but-
might have. But he was like 80 something when he died. He
Yeah.
was looking a little older. But yeah, I mean that's and of course, speaking of movies,
Jurassic World.
2 days.
Mm-hmm.
This Friday, look out, Jurassic World, and of course the reviews have absolutely says Chris Pratt again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've said this is going to be the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Jimmy, of course, who is a dinosaur fanatic,
Mm-hmm.
is going to line up for that baby. The problem I've got, of course, is we have to go to a matinee because I can't. We're lucky here in Gainesville because it's not like L.A. where the theaters are 100% full every time. But here, if you go to a matinee, you can usually maybe by Saturday or Sunday it'll have cleared out a little bit, and matinee. And that way I don't I can't be around crowds because of the chance I might get sick with my lung transplant. So anyway, all right. Well, I've got a couple more things here.
Okay. Well, one ancillary thing to the Border Patrol situation, I just want to point out to people: if you are outraged about the Border Patrol situation, become aware of the Department of Children and Families in your local area, because they are practicing most likely a policy of separation of parents and children that is on par with what you're seeing at the border.
Right.
Or worse, I've seen kids separated from their parents for the allegation, literally the entire allegation was that the house was dirty.
Right.
It's akin to, if you think about this, the Departments of Children and Families were set up to prevent large-scale abuse and to shelter kids from parents in situations of large-scale abuse. Unfortunately, they've overstepped their bounds.
No.
They've outgrown their purview so far. Now we're in a situation where you can imagine you're at a theater and you see a parent slap their child. Well, the child has been hurt, of course. The question is this: is that parent still the best parent for that child?
Right.
Right there in the moment, our policies on our departments and children and families would suggest no.
Right.
Would suggest you should remove that child from that parent's custody for that child's protection. And the state does not infer any harm to the child from that separation.
Right.
They want the child and the parent to see this separation as a rescue. And they want the child to see the state as the rescuer and the benevolent helper in this situation.
As of course, as they take, as we've just seen the pictures on the border, even as bad as it is, the child is screaming his head off, "I want my mommy."
Exactly. And this happens every time. As you can imagine, if you were at a theater and a parent hit their child and you walked up to the child and said, "Come with me, I'm going to save you from your parent," the child would scream bloody murder and say, "No, no, no, let me go. I want to be with my parent."
Well, of course, I tell this about this all the time. When this was 10, 15 years ago, when this all started, I was babysitting for two kids. A friend of mine.
You mean a hypothetical person was babysitting?
A hypothetical. Well, no. Let me just tell the story. I was babysitting for these two kids, and they were like 8 and 6, or 7 and 4, or something like that. The boy was 7 and the girl was like 4, and I was in the process. So what I had done is I took them over to Toys R Us. We played around and everything, and then right across the street was a mall. So I thought, well, we'll have a little exercise, and we went through one end of the mall and walked all the way to the other end of the mall, and at the end was a chocolate cookie place, whatever they call that, was Famous Amos or something.
Okay.
So I stood there and I said, Jeremy, look after your sister, and I'll buy you a cookie or something. So I bought this cookie, and the little girl had disappeared behind a little kiosk. And I said, Jerry, where is she? What happened? Okay, well, of course they were totally. So anyway, I walked around there, and there's the little girl, and I said, "Now come here, darling. Here's a cookie for you." Well, right there was a lady with her baby in a what do you call it?
Stroller.
And of course, here I am, a big guy, and coming around and
offering a little girl
a cookie, and she's looking at me, and you could just see the wheels going around, memorizing everything I looked like and so forth. And I said, "Don't worry, I'm just babysitting." And she says, "I don't know." And I said, whatever the girl's name was, I said, tell her who I am. And she goes, "I don't know."
Yeah, great.
Of course, I'm sitting there. Finally, Jeremy comes up and says, "Yes, Jimmy, look, it's okay. Let's go." But I mean, I could see the wheels turning in this. And if there had been, as you said, even remote, if I had touched her or anything like that, somebody would have put me up against the wall.
Right. Basically, we've got to the point of where those departments micromanage these families.
Yes.
And
well, they get paid to do it.
Well, right.
They get paid the same as the police do on the street. When they stop you on your car, you are guilty. There's no way you're talking your way out of that. You are guilty. There's no way you can say, "Look, officer," unless you just sit there and flat out deny it. "I did not go through the red light." No, I'm serious. They're going to give you a ticket, and if you sit there and say and admit to anything, you're stupid. The point is, when they come to your house, they're 90% going to take somebody out of there.
They have a lot of power. I will say that.
They come with a guy with a gun. The sheriff is there with them.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to fight against that.
Not with force, you're not.
But the point is that
your legal options are very limited, is what it comes down to. You can have, they can take, here's what they can do. Department of Children and Families, without notice, can pick up your child from school, drive them to your house, get them to get a few clothes, take them to a different home across town, put them with a different family. They can enroll them in a different school, and then they can limit your visitation to your child to 1 hour per week for the next 6 months or a year, while you earn your child back by taking classes at your expense. And you can't this whole time discuss the situation with your child in any way. You can't discuss it with the child. You're not allowed to broach the subject of the separation. How weird is that?
Yeah, pretty weird.
And any emotion exhibited by either the child or the parent is inferred as a negative disruption in the child's life that is weighed against the reintegration of the family and works to keep the family separated. So it's amazing how institutionalized the separation of families has become for poor people all around all 50 states. So this type of treatment at the border doesn't surprise me, because we have desensitized all of our officials to separating children from families.
Well, the fact is that in regular crimes, you know, which there are many, I mean, if mom gets caught shoplifting, I mean, you know, she's going to go in the who's cow, and the child is going to
Well, that's what I say. In a regular crime situation, people can understand that.
Right.
In a, quote, non-crime situation, nobody understands it.
Yeah,
and that's the way that it should be. It should be worse. It should be harder for them for them to break up a family than it is for them to convict you of a crime. And instead, it's much, much easier. The standard is civil law for them to break up a family versus criminal law for them to convict you of some sort of crime.
Okay.
From my perspective, for them to separate a family permanently, it should be beyond all doubt, not beyond a reasonable doubt. It should be, there's no question, we must break up this family.
Yeah.
And all of the standards of proof leading up to that breakup, from my perspective, should be ratcheted up so that it's very hard for them to separate a child.
Well, they've made it, as you know, if a child goes to a doctor or in school even, and if the teacher is mandated by law to report anything that she thinks is abuse.
Correct. And that can be as simple as changing the medication. You bring your child to the doctor. The doctor says, your child has X. I'm prescribing Y. You show up a few weeks later and you say, Y is not working for my child. My child is comatose, or they're out of it. Whatever they are.
Yeah.
It's not working. I'm moving them off of Y. I need you to suggest an alternative. The doctor says, well, I don't really have anything. And you say, well, I'm trying some Eastern medicine or something, voodoo, whatever it is you want to do. That doctor must call the Department of Children and Families, and the probability is they will break up that family because the parent disagrees with the official licensed diagnosis.
Homeopathic medicine is out.
All those things are out. And there really comes down to what your doctor said is becoming prescribed. And one thing you can do is get another expert that is licensed by the same authorities to contradict that.
Well, that's what they do in courts. They have specialists that are designed to do that. But I mean, you know, if she falls off a bicycle or something like that, you know, the next thing you know what happened at home.
Oh, there's all sorts of crazy, don't get me started about...
Don't get you started. You saw a lot of that.
Well, they can look at a bruise and see a handprint.
Yeah.
The way you can look at a cloud and see anything you want to see.
You know what you do?
There's a hand right there. It's thumb. I can see it. And look, there's a fingerprint. You can see.
You know,
three fingers.
What you do see, just to get off the subject, to finish off on a light note, is one of the things you see on Facebook all the time is what they call false lip reading.
Oh yeah,
and the lips move perfectly.
I love it.
What they're saying is something that's totally opposite is really good. So that's what they do. Okay, well let's move along.
Yeah.
The rest of this stuff is okay. I got one thing here about Turkey.
Okay.
Lockheed Martin has just a deal to sell $10 billion, which is actually not all that much, of F-35 fighter jets. And the F-35 the one that blows up a lot, or something? Is that the vertical takeoff and landing one? I don't know. Fighter jets to Turkey under threat from the Senate voted to block the deliveries of our NATO ally. Well, it's part of a $716 billion defense policy package, and comes over tensions over the Eurasian countries' decision to buy the Russian S-400 air defense systems, which is kind of interesting because we're going to sell them the fighter jets, and then Russia's going to sell them the defense systems. And but for my thinking, the fact that Turkey is in NATO is a joke. I mean, they don't do anything for us. I mean, we have a big base there, I guess, someplace.
With
nukes. But the country is under an absolute dictatorship, and it's interesting because we were just listening to Ben Shapiro, for instance. He was talking about the guy from North Korea being the worst, most horrible dictator on the planet. Well, there's 30 of them around this planet that are at least as that bad, and Erdogan is another one that's no holds barred guy. I mean, you know. He's
pretty brutal.
He's pretty brutal. I mean, really. So the point is that, as far as I'm concerned, except that Lockheed, is going to go up there and say, wait a minute, this is our money, this is our $10 billion, and we got to sell it to them. And of course, Turkey, of course, is in the process of bombing the crap out of Syria, or something like that.
Well, they regularly fight with Syria and the Kurds on the southern border.
Right. So
they're busy bombing themselves right now.
Yeah,
he's busy clearing out his population. Well, we were hoping that there would be some moderates in Turkey. Turkey is typically
we hope there's moderates in Iran too, and there are, but good luck on finding them. I mean, you got to wait. Erdogan is obviously. I mean, here's a guy who declared a state of emergency that was supposed to last for 3 months. Now he's like Maduro down here, dictator for life.
Right. Well,
so that's the way.
So what's your point about Turkey?
My point is, don't block the sale and get rid of. I'd kick Turkey out of NATO, and take our base and go home. I mean, we don't need a friend with friends like that. We got enough enemies. That was my thing. Is that Turkey is really not any friend of ours. Just trade with them. Cut them off. We're going to do like a Texit, a Turk exit. We cut them off. Turk exit.
Well, I'm going to say that my position is that we should only maintain strategic alliances with countries that add something to the firepower of the alliance.
No, the way I look
think
at it,
Turkey's economy is about the same as Arkansas or something.
Right. I suppose it is. Yeah.
I don't think that they are providing, as you say, any more strategic advantage. They probably did when we got them in NATO 40, 50 years ago, back in the day, because back when troop movement was much more important.
Well, the Cold War was on, and they border Russia. So I mean that would sort of make sense. Mm-hmm. But this is one of the problems with, as George Washington even said, no entangling alliances.
Right. Well,
and, we've said already. We said right now that if South Korea gets attacked or if Belgium gets attacked, we're going to nuke up. I mean, this is whatever.
Well, Turkey is in an entangling alliance from the standpoint of I don't think we anticipate any attacks on Turkey that would draw us into a larger conflict.
You never anticipate anything. They all start false flags all the time. Day in and day out, false flags.
All right. Well,
all right.
I don't particularly like our nukes being maintained in any other countries.
No, it's crazy. Here, look, the bottom line is we've got, I don't know how many nukes that are literally 50 miles off the coast of every country in the world in subs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
mean, the fact that you'd have to launch from Nebraska is insanity. You're like, who cares? As far as I'm concerned,
Black Sea. It's 5 minutes away.
It's 5 minutes away. No warning. I mean, seriously, unbelievable. Anyway,
all right. Next,
this is another Lockheed story.
Okay.
One of Elvis Presley's private jets is once again up for auction.
Okay.
The 1962 Lockheed Jetstar, grounded in Roswell, New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
So,
aliens
got a hold of it or what?
Put some special upgrades.
For over 4 decades has been all...
You could not get laid in that plane. Oh, wait! Yes, you could!
Oh, I was going to say, the plane has gold-tone hardware, custom... It has no engine and its cockpit needs restoring. its current owner bought it last year for $430,000. And if this guy thinks he's going to get that kind of money out of it, he's nuts. I don't think. I mean, we'd have to be a real Elvis aficionado because it's going to cost you $2 million to fix it up.
Really?
Oh, are you kidding? Engines?
What?
Cockpit?
What? How much could it cost?
A cockpit these days, couple $100,000 easy.
Okay.
And the engines, you know, there's a couple $100,000 easy for
Yeah.
each one.
Okay.
Repaint, refurbish the inside, you know, new tires.
Right.
You
Well,
know.
think about it, though. For a couple of $1 million, you end up with the Elvis jet versus
Well, that's true. That is true.
You
Now, of course, it's a 1962 jet.
boy, probably hog some gas, huh?
And noisy. Oh, yeah.
It's probably not the most aerodynamic.
Well, not only that, you're
beast
probably not
either.
going to be able to fly it into California with the EPA.
right. They just shoot you down
Shoot you
at the border.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Okay, next item I've got in kind of a. Let me just see here if I'm finished here. If I'm
Complete
finished
with
now.
8-track cassette player.
Yeah, right, exactly. 8-track with all of Elvis's songs.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, redo Bo's sound system and everything, you know.
Can you imagine?
What I thought was interesting, and I've said this before, the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, I have all long maintained that of all the people, they have like, I don't know,
I have
500
a friend
hate
that works
groups.
there.
That is the hate group. That is, you know, this is the pot calling the
She's
kettle black.
nice.
I don't care if she's nice. It's a hate group. And what's interesting, no fewer than 60 organizations branded, quote, hate groups, unquote, or otherwise attacked by the Southern Poverty Law Center are considering legal action against the left-wing smear factory, which, you know, a Christian legal nonprofit leader confirmed that to PJ Media on Tuesday. He suggested that $3 million settlement and an apology that the SPLC gave to somebody or another and his Quillen Foundation on Monday should encourage firms to for more what do I do here? For more, I'll finish up here. Nope, that's it. Okay, so that's it. But I've always said if you go through and you see the stuff that they consider to be hate groups, I mean, it's a joke. I mean, there are probably, I think they have like 500 or 600. They've got a map with all of this hate group, and this is a black, and this is Muslim, blah blah blah. All the different, you know, they've got like 20 shades of hate groups, white supremacist, you know, whatever, and they got a map with a little triangle here, a circle here, a square here, all different colors and so forth. And some of the stuff, there's probably, I don't know, 20% of them at least. No way, Jose. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, you know, they get branded by the SPLC, and suddenly some of their funding dries up.
Well,
Dries up.
the classification of a group as a hate group is really inappropriate.
I agree.
What they should be classifying is groups that are associated with violence in some way instead of hate. Because hate is too easy to...
Oh, yeah.
For example, you could say that the FSU Alumni Association hates the Gator Alumni Association. And there may actually be some people in that group who actually do hate one another.
We don't have it so much. We don't have so much. We don't have the riots that break out in the stadiums. But we do.
Think about
have,
the soccer fans,
or even baseball. When when the pitcher noggins somebody and the
well,
and,
yeah,
okay.
that's a momentary thing.
Momentary.
But surely, the World Cup soccer going on right now, and there are some hate groups. So hate it's too easy, and also hate can be done sarcastically.
Yep.
So
well, they've got it now, especially in England, and I don't know if it's going to be coming here or not. But they've got a little bit of it in Canada. But in England, hate speech will get you in jail.
well, that's what I'm getting at, is that the line needs to be backed up.
Yeah,
It needs to be backed up beyond any type of vocalization,
Right.
or gesture.
Right.
No type of expression that someone could infer hate from should be vilified.
Well,
what should be vilified is the actual act of violence.
Well, it depends what you call violence. There was the guy.
Unconsented touching.
Okay, but there was one guy in England who threw a ham sandwich.
That's violence.
No, at the church, at the mosque.
Oh,
Didn't hit anybody. He threw it at their door.
yeah. See,
And
that's
he went
not
to jail.
violent. It's not violence because Well,
The violence part was when the cops went to take him away.
if it damaged the church, then it's vandalism.
A hand sandwich.
I could see them having to clean it off.
That's 30 seconds.
Right.
Or what
But
they
you don't arrest somebody for that.
No, you have him clean it up.
That's what I mean. That's your punishment.
That's your penalty, right?
Right.
Community service for the next 10 minutes.
That's it. Clean
Yeah.
that ham up. Clean that mayonnaise. Get the mayonnaise off of there. Mustard. And so, yeah, that's your whole situation. So to classify a group as a hate group really goes too far. It doesn't matter what the feelings of any particular group is. What matters is how they act on those feelings.
Well,
or
the
not
thing that
act.
happens is that we've still seen to this day, 150 years after the Civil War, people classify everything as hate groups. I mean, as hate speech. They will attribute it even when it's not, when it's obviously not.
Well, there's a relatively new wave in the last 20 years or so. There's been a huge resurgence of hate. It grew out of some laws that were passed that coupled hate speech with certain acts that enhanced penalties, as you recall. Whether if you hit somebody, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as if you hit them and you call them a slur at the same time, allegedly. But to me, that's the wrong. They're putting the emphasis on the wrong part of the act. It's not what you call them when you hit them that should be the enhancement. It's how many times you hit them. You should be able to call them a whole bunch of stuff. If you never touch them, that's not a crime. If you hit them once, the only crime is the one hit. If you hit them a bunch of times, the crime is the bunch of hits, or ever how hard you hit them. That's the measure. It's not this speech.
Well, they had another one where some kids, I think in Texas, dragged some black guy, chained him, whatever, and they were condemned to death.
Right.
And so they said, but it's a hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
This was a hate crime. I mean, they were already
death?
They were all going to get convicted for the death penalty anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So now that it's a hate crime, what else are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, torture them for a while, or
right. Well, again, I think it's a misplaced effort. I think
it totally is, and it's gone, as you say, it's gone off the deep end because as we've seen, our political correctness, especially on campuses, has been where the victim can assign to themselves whether or not you were at fault for saying something that was totally innocent. That is to say, are we
talking about gender stuff at this point, or what?
Well, a lot of it's gender stuff, but almost anything else. I mean, if you was it the other day, for instance, there were I know what it was. They had these two girls that posted on their Snapchat or whatever the hell it was. They were in a spa getting their faces done, and they had everything but the avocado or whatever cucumber on their eyes. They were all painted all black and everything like that. Well, right away they were called into the school principal office and said, "Wait, this is a hate crime. I mean, this is hate speech. You're doing blacks." They said, "No, you don't understand. This was whatever. This is." But the point was, somebody dragged him in there and figured out that this was, bad, and of course there's no intent on their problem, but somebody read into that, I am now offended and they have to pay. Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine that, we're not telling anybody where we are, because I imagine we've offended a few people today.
Well, we're obviously in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C.
That's right, yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. Well, we've done about an hour.
Just about. I got a couple of quick little things.
Okay, good.
Let's see here. Let's just see. I had just quickly to revisit China. Now Trump threatening to ramp up the tariffs further.
Well, I saw where Kim Jong-un went back to Peking the other day again. Like yesterday, the day before.
Is that
his
right?
second or third visit to China? Yeah.
Mm. So. Let's see. Comey now under investigation. Just real quick. These are just quick notes. Finally, Giuliani. If I were Trump, I would fire Giuliani.
Really?
Yeah, at this point. He came out the other day and said that he was just saying something the other day.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
He took back. He walked back something.
Walked back, right.
it's like, look, man, this guy, he's just not the kind of player that Trump needs to have on the team there.
Well, he's a Trump supporter, pretty much.
Yeah, well.
He's
All right, I got one more quick thing.
Okay.
Actually, not terribly quick, but I have to bring this up. We talked about DUI a couple times. There's a case right now out of Ohio. Woman is going down for TUI, texting while driving.
Okay.
So she was not impaired. She was not speeding, but she texted while she was driving, killed a couple of kids.
Ooh!
So, what do you think the punishment is?
Jeez, I don't know. Jail time.
How much?
Boy, I don't know. That's negligent homicide, or what is that? I mean,
Yeah, that's what they do now. They transfer the intent, your intent to drive and your intent to text, over into homicide. So she's basically being convicted of murder, or like you said, manslaughter.
well, manslaughter is pretty. It doesn't put you in jail for too long, does it? I mean,
Depends on what you think. Anyway, she's going to prison for 6 years.
okay.
And to me, this is just a tragedy on top of a tragedy. It's a horrible situation. The poor woman, she's 25 years old, I think. Yeah, 25-year-old girl. Obviously didn't intend to kill anybody.
What would have happened though, if she had not been texting, and maybe lost control of her car?
Right. See, they don't have anything to hang their hat on.
But
And so
still, there's dead people.
right, and they'll get to that. They'll call it distracted driving.
Okay.
But right now she might have walked away clean with nothing if they had no text. I guarantee that the text is what they hung their hat on.
Oh, shit.
So, well, anyway, that's all. I just wanted to let you guys know.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry about that.
So be careful when you're out there on the road. If you make any kind of mistake, there is no mercy.
No.
If you kill somebody, the mistake, your prison sentence is directly related to the number of deaths and the age of the victims, as opposed to your intent. It has nothing to do with what you intended to do. They've completely obviated the intent requirement for the murder crime at this
Well,
point.
you know, Hillary got off, of course, for Comey said she didn't intend to do all this stuff after he outlined all of the serious felonies all over the place. Said, but she didn't intend to do it, so we're not going to prosecute.
That's right. Well, it's good to know that the standard is being applied somewhere in the law.
Okay, I got one more thing. I hate
Okay.
a man who has been outspoken critic of this, and this is something that occurs here in Gainesville. Outspoken critic of South Florida City, where he lives, is now 2-0 in disputes with the city before the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah.
And this is where he got in front of the city council and basically chastised the heck out of them, told them that they were a bunch of bozos or whatever it was. And after his 3 minutes were up, they apparently escorted him out, he and the whole deal, and they arrested him. I think they took him into custody or something like that. And he began, it's 2006, which is interesting, 12 years ago. He was arrested at Riviera Beach City Council meeting. So he won a case against the city. He said, you can't do it. Now that brings up a lot of things, because I can tell you he was arrested. He argued he was arrested because he was a critic of the city and sued. But the lower court said Lozman was barred from bringing a lawsuit for retaliation because the jury found a police officer had probable cause to arrest him for disturbing a lawful assembly. The Supreme Court disagreed, with Justice Anthony Kennedy writing an 8-1 decision that Lozman's lawsuit wasn't barred. And interestingly enough, for some reason, I'd like to read the dissent, but Clarence Thomas, who's one of our favorite justices, dissented. But this brings up a point here that I've talked about, I think, before. I personally used to go down to the city and county commissions a lot, and because they are a bunch of bozos here, and they for some reason the city, the government, the local governments think that they can do everything for everybody. If no matter what it is, they can do it better than the market. City beautification, planning, building, whatever it is, they have all this stuff. So I've gone down there a couple times, and I remember one time I went to a budget meeting, sat there for 3 hours, while the different departments each came up with their, with their spreadsheets and their PowerPoint presentations, so all could see. It was all televised, and why they should be funded, for millions or whatever it was of dollars. Then they'd sit down, and the next place would come up there, fire, police, whatever, beautification, something, homeless advocates, whatever, and each one of them would spend about an hour, giving this beautiful, beautiful presentation, obviously done on city time. So at the end, they said to me, it was being televised, they said, does anybody, and we now have time for citizen comment. I was the only one there. So I went up there and I said, yeah, I've got a few comments. Well, you're allowed 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 180 seconds is what you're allowed. So, and they have a little light system here. It goes green and then yellow and then red. And when it got done, and I was running over 3 minutes, and they said, Jimmy, you're going to move along now. You've had your time. And I'm thinking, this is what gets me about this guy. He said, no, this is wrong and everything. So and of course they have, even in our place downtown here, they have a sheriff's deputy, guns, armed, to haul you out if you overstay your time. Well, it's one of those things. And so what do you do? And that's what this particular case talks about. And I'll have to read the concurrence or so forth and find out, because the big question is, what are you allowed to do? I mean, what happens because for instance, everybody was allowed 3 minutes. I've had this happen to me more than once, where I was the only one there, but if 30 people had been there, it would have been an hour and a half. And I was prepared to talk for 30 minutes and cover all the hour and a half for them to let them go home. But not to be, right? You got 3 minutes and then you're out of here.
I might be siding with Clarence Thomas on this one from the standpoint of it's up to the city council to set the rules to run an effective and efficient meeting. And
no, that's true. That is true.
My impression from this case was that they didn't even let him have his 3 minutes. I could be wrong about that, but that would be what I would assume would trigger his constitutional right to continue to speak.
Yeah.
If they didn't like what he was saying,
no,
so they're not giving him his 3 minutes.
Right.
That is El Wrongo.
Yeah.
But if he went over his 3 minutes or demanded more, or
they do this even in ours. You'll see some people that get a little hot.
Right.
And they start. They're not actually cursing, but they're hollering.
Right.
And so forth. And no, we're not going to hear any more of this. You have to move on now. After about a minute,
right,
they can ask you to leave because you're disturbing the meeting.
Right, and that makes perfect sense. They're totally allowed to do that. And the way you deal with that situation without losing your mind is you make sure that those councils do not have any great power, so that you don't have to worry about what they're doing. If their power is limited by the state overall in a nice circumscribed way, then you don't have to worry about them going rogue.
Well, I asked him one time, this was years ago, I said, what does it take for me to come up and apply, weeks in advance for some special time to talk about what I want to talk about? And they said, well, you have to be part of an organization. You can't just, as a private citizen, you cannot get on the agenda.
Right.
Jimmy Doane wants to talk for 15 minutes about so and so, and give a praise. They said, no, you have to be a member of the concerned citizens.
Jimmy Doane fan club.
Something, right? Exactly. And you have to have members and dues.
Members too.
501(c) or whatever the hell it is, right? But I thought it was kind of interesting because what I have done, which is out of sight, is I have made appointments with the various commissioners and gone down to speak to them face to face, which unfortunately here in the city there's 7 of them, I think, and so you go down and talk to one, and it's out of sight and nothing's going to happen. And as you well know, all the commissioners, as they have 25 special interest groups essentially, and they have their constituency is hugely broad, and all they have to do is to satisfy 50% plus 1. And if you happen to be one of the 49%, they don't care about you. I mean, they really don't. They have too many. They're trying to do too much stuff. That 50 years ago when I first got here, they didn't do any of that stuff. We did okay.
What are you saying? You can't just appeal to their principles and their conscience?
No. No, the only thing you can appeal to is votes. If you can get enough people to if you signed a petition.
You, Mr. Mayor, will have saved thousands of registered voters.
Right. Well, I did write him a letter one time. You can't. The one problem is, as we've seen from this border business, emotions are what drive these people. Not you can have the finest facts on the planet. It means nothing. It's all emotions. Our biomass plant here was based on saving the environment. And people came up, half the people that came up there said, this is insanity, you can't do this, this is going to kill. What are you talking about?
Well, it's fine to start with emotions. It's fine to start with, hey, we want to do this. The problem is that then they abandon the logic of how to get there.
Right.
And so it's that your mind is there to help your emotions get what they want, but you can't abandon it along the way, and that's what they do. For example, the biomass plant.
Well, there was another one. I had another one, for instance, where I had some apartments, and it turned out they put a Section 8 in the middle of this middle of this complex. Well, the rents went down. The place was, suddenly it was like the bad apple that spoiled the whole barrel. And so I wrote a letter and I said, here's what you are losing. You are losing, the money went down, the value of the places went down, the rents went down, this, that, and the other. And I showed them in dollars and cents with a little Excel spreadsheet how much revenue they were missing. It was tens of thousands of dollars, and nothing, zero, didn't care.
Weird.
Yeah. So again, that's what, and Scott Adams is another one who will tell you this. He says it's you have to listen to his. I mean, really,
you are in a bromance with that guy.
I totally am. I mean, he is really good, and he's better than most.
This show brought to you by Scott Adams.
Yeah,
podcast.
Probably. Yeah, we might advertise his book, which I have to finish.
That's right. Actually,
all right. Well, we've run way over.
Today we're
Oh yeah, who we brought him to? Who's our sponsor?
Our mystery
today?
sponsor here is. Oh, wait a minute.
No, we were sponsored by them before.
Yeah. There it is.
Taco Bell. Yes, this is going to be the Taco Bell / paintball.
That's right.
Arena. For it'll be like a linear Thunderdome, I guess, or something. Or no, it'll be like Running Man.
That's right.
It'll be like Running Man.
Yeah, and, nice long corridor.
Nice long corridor. Maybe a little, or it could even be a maze.
Yeah.
But you have, and then you have maybe little Taco Bell rewards as you go through. This would be great fun.
You can pick up a shield or something.
Yeah. Well, I have never understood, as I said before, these people are coming in from Ecuador or wherever it is, they're traipsing over 1,000 miles. What do they use for food and everything? I mean, what as they go through Mexico, what are they eating and drinking? Do they bring any money with them? Or
probably a little bit. Probably enough to make the trip.
Yeah.
They're probably thinking. And then probably they don't eat. Some of them probably don't eat a lot. Some of them probably share their food with other migrants, other immigrants.
Yeah, but I mean, how much food can you carry on a 1,000-mile trip? I don't care who you are.
Oh, I agree. I think you're right. I think look, this is not a pleasure journey or anything. This is
this is on a risk
hideous,
we talked about.
Life-changing, life-risking, future-altering event. They are abandoning their culture, everything they've known for decades, their families, their heritage. It's all. That's why I'm so open to immigrants. These are not people who are coming over here to do harm. The only people who are going to make that kind of a journey are in desperate straits, and
well, there's a lot of people, and Mrs. Jimmy included, that think that a goodly percentage of these hundreds of thousands of people are the cruel criminals and the rapists and the drug dealers. So,
sure, maybe.
Okay. Keep them all out. Okay. Baby with the bathwater. Bye-bye.
That's it.
Well, that was great.
Hey.
We did run a little over.
Well, it'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen.
So thank you all for tuning in. You can catch us at 4 p.m. on Wednesdays and Sundays right here on the Jimmy Doane channel on YouTube. please send us your emails. We have a secret email that we're not giving out, which if you find, we'd be happy to receive an email from you. We'll give it out soon. And of course, we accept tweets or carrier pigeon, singing telegram, and that kind of stuff.
What about my Gmail account? That's Jimmy Doane.
Okay.
It's JD Show.
JDShow at gmail.com.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
Unsecret email.
unsecret. Well, we have others as well, but that's one that'll get you started anyway. JDShow at gmail.com.
We'd love to have your comments, questions, anything.
Complaints?
That's it.
Complaints we really want to know about.
Yeah. We're just getting started here, but hopefully we'll provide you with some decent entertainment.
Well, I expect we will. Again, remember, I've always said hope is not a business plan. So.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.